Oh, hi there, and welcome to the new video here on my channel on dating guys with Asperger syndrome. So I was reading around some Asperger's forums the other day on the web, and I came across this guy who was heartbroken because he had overheard that some people called him creepy. And that guy got, he got the typical answers in that thread that, yeah, neurotypical people, anything they perceive as different, they might call weird or creepy and just don't worry about it. And I thought, well, this doesn't really help this guy. And I thought what a horrible situation it would be if you're like trying to socialize, trying to get out of your shell, you try to talk to people, and then like boom, immediately you hear like, oh, they thought I was creepy, and you don't know why. So I did some research around the web, and there was actually not that much actionable good information on how to address this or tackle this situation. And I can kind of understand why, because it can have many different reasons, and different situations, different people you interact with. And so I thought to myself, well, okay, what do I do? Do I want to talk on the web about why some stranger might be called creepy, or do I play it safe and talk about something else? But then I thought back, well, if that happened to me, I would really, anything that remotely would have the chance of helping, I would probably appreciate. So I figured I'd give this a try. And again, every situation is different. First of all, I'm talking here about if it's with people you barely know, because if you've already like talked with people many times and then they get alienated or whatever, then that is a different situation than if you join a group, try to socialize with new people, and immediately it doesn't work. In the latter case, it's more likely that it's simply your body language and just some simple things you do. I think there are some things how you can actually address that, and I wanted to get a little bit into that stuff. So, and all this might apply to your situation, or it might not at all apply. All right. Creepiness. Being creepy. First of all, if you're the type of Aspie who has not learned yet to look people in the eye while socializing, if you're mostly looking down, if you're really shy, if you hang back, if you don't mingle much with people, if you keep to yourself, chances are you wouldn't be called creepy. Because then you're completely non-threatening, and creepy involves he's creeping on me, he's encroaching on my space, he's threatening, and creepy is a very strong word. So my first guess would be, if you're called that, and actually most people with Asperger's are not creepy, and I need to point this out right now because I've watched a ton of Aspies, talking on YouTube. I've known a lot of Aspies, I've dated Aspies, and most are absolutely not creepy, super nice people. But we're talking here if you've been called creepy, and so there might be a subsection where you have to polish a little bit your social interaction. And I would say in most cases a lot of it is simply eye contact. And Aspies tend to have this thing where it's like all or nothing. It's like naturally maybe they don't want to look people in the eye at all, but then they go like, oh, I'm going to learn to socialize now. I know I have to look people in the eye, so I'm going to look, I'm uncomfortable looking into their eyes directly, but I can look between their eyes, and now I'm going to just look into their eyes and pay rapt attention to what they say, and that will help a lot my socializing. And that is a terrible thing to do, because if you look and stare at somebody too long, that is really threatening, and that makes a person really uncomfortable, way more uncomfortable than if your conversation partner doesn't look at you. And here's the reason. In a natural conversation, a person thinks of something to say, then they say it, making that connection, and then they might have to think about another thing to say, and we actually look away while we're thinking. And I got into this in my earlier video where I said, well, look me in the eyes and calculate 65 times 17. And a neurotypical person will have extreme problems with that, because to think really hard, to make a calculation, you have to look away, and then to make the social connection, you look back into the other person's eyes, or you glance up at their face and you talk, and then you glance again. You might look away again to think of something else, and you look into their eyes again. Now with an Aspie has to think really, really hard, even during the socializing, when they know what to say, but want to make that connection through conversation. So an Aspie doesn't have naturally these periods where they don't think much and just talk and socialize and connect, and then think of what to say next and look away. And then so an Aspie will be talking to you, and they might make pauses during that while they talk, but they will not look away, and that becomes very unnatural staring, and it makes people very, very uncomfortable. Like, compare if I were to say, let's bake a cake. I'm going to get the eggs, and you're going to get the milk. Compare that with, let's bake a cake. I'm going to get the eggs, and you're going to get the milk. Yes, like when these split seconds where you think of the next thing to say, you have to look away. So there has to be a rhythm where you look in the eyes and then look away and look again. That gets made worse by how sometimes people on the spectrum, they have a very flat affect, or they don't move their head quite as much, and they don't naturally look in many directions, synchronized well with what they talk about, and that then causes even more, that even this directly looking, where maybe a normal person, if they were staring, they would go like this, where a person with Asperger's is so focused on the conversation and thinking so hard that even their body language is kind of stiff, and their head doesn't move much. In fact, pretty extreme Aspies, they can almost balance a glass of water on their head while they speak, and that is very, very bad, because usually people, while they talk, they move their head, even if it's a little bit, and that's natural. So if somebody has a very stiff posture, stares at you even while they have pauses in their speech, that's almost like a cat about to jump, and it's perceived as creepy and threatening. And there's actually a documentary on YouTube if you want to see that more in action. It's called, I think, something like Autism, the Wall Without Any Limits. And in it, the filmmaker who has autism speaks to the camera, and actually, I don't know why, but sometimes it even shows him in profile, and he talks like this against a monochrome background, and then he talks like this. In profile you see him talk, and you see how he looks unblinkingly at the camera. His head is barely or not at all moving, and his demeanor is, I think, the kind where some people would say, yeah, that's creepy. And you can compare that with when the documentary then cuts to his psychologist, who also doesn't move much, but he looks away during pauses. He moves his head a little bit, and then you have his female friend who's also neurotypical, who's a bit more perky, and her head moves and she looks around, and then it cuts back to him. And the speech is also, it's like halfway between normal speech and Stephen Hawking. And that's another thing that with people with Asperger's who just starting to learn, or who've been trying to socialize for a while, and they're getting sort of the hang of it, but it still takes them longer than a neurotypical person. So it can have that effect almost where they move talk, everything, like it feels like slowed down by a factor of like 1.2 or whatever. And that's a very subtle effect where like smile slowly spreads across the face, and then the person talks and the speech seems slightly slurred. And yeah, most Aspies actually don't do this. I think a lot of people pick this up fairly quickly, but then again, some do. And I think a really good thing to do is, record yourself. Sit down, get a chair, put it in the middle of the room, set up a camera, and record yourself maybe as you sit down and talk about your favorite movie. And then play it back and compare it. And there's actually, and female Aspies are actually just, on average, wonderful at blending in, and they get actually diagnosed often years and years later than their male counterparts, because female Aspies are more that they really imitate mannerism, speech, etc. of neurotypicals. They really watch and then they imitate, while maybe the male Aspies play with their train sets and their circuit boards, their whatever. The female Aspies go and they watch videos, they watch their female friends and they imitate it, and so they don't often get diagnosed until much later. So I figured there's this one guy on YouTube, Chris Stockman. I really like his movie reviews, and he's really like, he's laid back. He's not like super emotional and then this happened, oh this video, I love this so much. No, he's not over the top. He's just talking, laid back. He's not moving around tons. But, he has like 1 million subscribers. People like to hear him talk. And he's just this laid back dude who loves to talk about movies. And I thought almost like as a possible exercise, you could compare your recording of yourself talking about a movie, and then you could like look up, maybe he reviewed some of your favorite movies, and then maybe even try to talk with his demeanor and like imitate some of his gestures, which I think are never over the top, they're never inappropriate, they're just very fluent and nice, and it's not like you would have to completely change your whole demeanor. And in this video I mostly talk about Aspies, like the ones I know who are more introvert, quiet, of that kind, because but if you're like a very outgoing Aspie, like let's say Temple Grandin, some Aspies are just very resolute in your face, and they might come across then as creepy by just being too intense. And the opposite of creepy is like hanging back, being relaxed, just not staring, looking away a lot, and thinking, having those pauses. But I think more so than voice, it's always the eyes. And as an Aspie guy, you definitely don't want to stare at a girl ever to show interest or whatever. There's just this eye and smile, where you just throw a look and then smile and look away, and that's all. Don't stare, even if you find her attractive or whatever, because that gets you labeled creepy very quickly, and it is super uncomfortable for a woman. All right. So watch where you're looking. Avoid the shifty eyes as well. Shifty is like, where your eyes go around the room very quickly, almost as if you're scanning for predators or whatever. That's also perceived as a negative. And smile, quick smile is really all you need, because holding a smile for a bit too long or an unnatural smile can also be creepy, or smiling way too broadly, because people pick up on body language, and body language means something, and we don't consciously process it, And smiling especially means like, oh, I'm friendly, I don't mean any harm. So if your smile is even if it's just like 10% fake or whatever, it can throw this little nudge in there where suddenly the smile seems like a fake gesture, and then your subconscious automatically goes like, okay, this guy's pretending he's friendly and he wants me no harm. Maybe there is something. So again, it's a matter of practice, but again, Aspies are often all or nothing. They don't smile at all, or they hear you have to smile a lot, and then they might be smiling too much, and really just an occasional quick smile is enough. You don't have to like completely change how you communicate. It's just adding this little bit of reciprocity and interaction. So that covers most of facial expression, and things related to that. Now, on top of that, there are some other things you can do, and I was wondering if I should add this to this video, because really a lot of this is just like piddly, not so important stuff. But when we hear creepy guy, because body language is so subconscious, so somebody might even not know why they find you creepy. They can't just pinpoint it, they don't realize that maybe you're staring too long or whatever. It's just, okay, I don't have a good feeling about that guy. So then if your appearance has something where you can pin your uncomfort on or discomfort on, that can then you can become the creepy guy with the stringy unwashed hair and the ill-fitting clothes or whatever. So it does get to where it can help that on top of doing the body language thing and kind of watching that and trying to get better at that, that also you second guess a little bit, okay, appearance, etc. Is there anything I can do to become more or less threatening? So, or not threatening, just less weird. And because Aspies have a hard time imagining how they come across, they can have some weirdness about their appearance, and they don't really care, and they can't even really imagine how it would bother anybody or how anybody would perceive it as a negative, but it does. So take this advice with very huge bolt of salt, because I don't want you to change just because it helps to be more mainstream or whatever, but just some things to think about. Anyway, listen to me, and it's like terrible. I'm no person to give anybody fashion advice, but there you have it. I'm doing it anyway. All right, next, smelling really good. Good hygiene. And most of you, I don't even have to tell that, but there are some people who have some challenges with that, and nothing will cause a neurotypical person more to pin their discomfort on than if, on top of having like a little bit weird eye contact or tone of voice, if you also kind of smell a little bit off. So very important to use good deodorant. There's even, because bacteria gets harbored by hair, you might even want to trim your arm, the hair of your armpits a little bit or whatever. I don't know. Again, good deodorant. Be careful, wash your clothes often, especially men who live by themselves sometimes don't realize that this shirt that they pick up and smell to see if it's still good. No, if you've worn it a day, even if it was a cold day, you feel you didn't sweat, you didn't go anywhere dirty, it still smells, but you can't smell it because it's your own smell. Then some men have the habit of letting washed clothes fester in the washer while the clothes are damp. And then eventually they get around to putting them in the dryer. And clothes that are damp really, really quickly get a mildew smell. And that mildew smell does not go away as you put the washer in the dryer. Or as you put the clothes through the dryer. So then people walk around with this kind of mildewy smell, like they live in a basement or something. and they just wash their clothes, and they feel it's perfectly fine, but that's the problem. And that can also happen with your towels. Like, let's say if you live in the eastern United States where it's very humid, and you just never think of washing your towel much. You just hang it up after each shower, and then you use it again and again. But the air tends to be so humid that the towel never gets dry. So it's always kind of damp. Bacteria grows in it because you have like traces of your deodorant and everything that ends up in the towel. And then if you don't wash the towel often, and it happens, you smear that mildewy smell on your skin. And I in particular can smell that very easily, and there's nothing, it's like it smells bad, and it's just something that's so easily avoided. Change your towel often, and use white towels, and just add a little bleach every now and then to really get the bacteria out. And that also helps with acne and everything else, because that stuff also gets made worse if you dry off with a towel that has a lot of bacteria and stuff in it. So next, bad breath. Nothing can make people turn away from you quicker than if you have bad breath. It's so easily avoided, by brushing your teeth, by occasionally scraping your tongue. Look that up with a dull knife, get that white stuff out from the back of your tongue. Look into maybe eating something healthy, salad, raw carrot every now and then, and maybe gargle with mouthwash, even though mouthwash can be pretty harsh, even the non-alcohol kind, as you get older. And breath mints are your friends. Any of these minty kind of Altoids or whatever. Facial hair or hair in general, bald is sexy. So don't feel bad if your hair is thinning, but you don't want to have that child rapist hairstyle of just those few strands that are wrapped around your head or something like that. So I would recommend, if you're balding is not a big deal, but if you're getting so bald that it's mostly bald and just a few hairs, then shave it off. And I would recommend that you take a selfie stick, you go outside in the sun, and then you take pictures all around. Don't just judge by what you see in the bathroom mirror under artificial light. And if you take those pictures from all around, from behind you and in front, you might see, you're really a bald guy with some strands of wispy hair, and then just shave it off or whatever. And then facial hair, even beards are the thing now, so not a big deal, even if it's a bit scraggly or whatever. I don't think anybody would take offense to that, but in general, take a shower, of course, wash your beard, wash your hair if you have any, and that's important. God, I sound like your mother. Finally, behavior, and I'll get into that in other videos, so I'll keep it short here. But in general, being creepy means encroaching on people's space and being threatening. So you want to give people, I think it's called give people a wide berth, which comes from sailing, where boats take a long time to turn. And you don't ever want to box people in physically or through a social situation, make them feel like they can't get away easily. And it can happen through if you rant and they can't find a way to politely interrupt you and end the conversation or whatever. And it can be with things like, I've seen this because sometimes Aspies start to socialize, so maybe they go to these meet-up single events or whatever, and then they have some women smiling at them and making polite conversation, and they get so carried away. I'm socializing, I'm doing it, I'm talking, and then they get way too overexcited. They talk too much, they talk too fast, they almost pin a woman in. If a woman gives them some attention, then suddenly she can't get away from the conversation anymore. And then maybe let's say you have a bowling event and you just make some idle small talk in the beginning, and then this guy that you just smile at a bit, and you made some nice small talk. Oh, where do you live in town? Okay, I live there. And then he already thinks, oh yeah, she's totally into me, and then maybe people are split up into bowling groups that each one for one lane, and the guy says like, oh yeah, I'll be with you, and then he sits next to you, and then he talks to you the whole evening, and yes, guys like that, it's afterwards I go like, yeah, I really wanted to enjoy this event, but there was this creepy guy who just could not get any hint that no, just because I was a bit friendly with him and I enjoyed an initial conversation did not mean that I want him to sit leg to leg and talk my ear off and be like that for the rest of the evening. And I never find polite ways then to tell the guy, what do you do then? It's almost like you can't move somewhere else, you can't move to a different table, that would be super rude, and then you can only go home. And that has happened, that I just left events just for that reason. So don't be that guy. And I know practically all of you aren't. Chances are no real creepy guy ever watches this, but just in case. So don't come on too strong. Don't be bossy. Don't cut people off. Don't say, oh, you're thinking totally wrong there. I'll tell you how it really is. And some of the more outgoing Aspies, I think, are that way. And in fact, I don't want to call her out, but I actually like her channel a lot. There is this fundamentalist Christian Aspie. Her name is Eyes to Jesus, and she knows everything about the Bible. And apparently, she got thrown out of a couple of churches because she disagreed with the pastor and started, distributing flyers because, she wanted people to be informed what is actually in the Bible instead of what the pastor was preaching and stuff like that. So, and I think she's actually a super sweet woman. And when I first watched her, it was, maybe there's like, I hate to say creepy vibe, but you go like, what's the deal with her? And then you find out more, and then you see that she's actually really sweet and is passionate, and she has this peculiar interest. So I'm kind of fond of her, but if you are going new into a social situation and you come across like that, neurotypicals, there might be the immediate gut reaction here. It's like really weird, and this person is like so in my face and so intense, and the voice is so loud, and it doesn't have this inflection. And I don't know how to address that. If that sounds familiar to you, that people sometimes tell you you're too intense, I don't know how somebody like that could change their voice intonation. I read that there's sometimes singing therapy. Maybe if you take very sweet songs like lullabies, there's the song When You Say Nothing at All. It is like very subdued. Maybe if you learn that and try karaoke or whatever, or Don't Worry, Be Happy, which is like sing-song talking that forces you to modulate your voice or whatever. I don't know if any of that stuff helps. I've never dated somebody who was like that in your face and very intense, because I get scared by somebody like that too, and then it gets very uncomfortable when you try to have a conversation and you get constantly corrected, or the person wants to shine with their intelligence. And that's another thing where Aspies, because their strength is that they're so smart and they have this sparkling intelligence, and sometimes I think they erroneously then try in social situations to capitalize on that by seeming so brilliant and serving up all these facts, and it's not emotional, it's not personal, it's not pertinent, and that just has the opposite effect of what you would intend. It's almost like, us neurotypicals are lame. You just gotta check your encyclopedic knowledge at the door if you're making small talk, and just be relatable and just not correct people, and not and this is coming from the woman that if somebody says, oh, I did this really good, I always in my head I correct them, I did this really well. Okay. So much for behavior. Yeah, and yeah, I guess I've been on a few dates with guys who I would have like called creepy if I would have let myself, or even just, it's hard to avoid that word if you're made extremely uncomfortable by somebody, and it can be with that extreme staring, which I've experienced, which is, this unblinking staring, that's like the most disturbing thing. And then this over anxious socializing. Actually, there was this very interesting story where, and it's already getting too long, but all right. So I hope this was helpful to somebody out there. I'll wrap it up here, and I look forward to talking with you again really soon.